Major General Kirill Budanov, head of the main Directorate of Intelligence of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, has given several interviews in recent days, from which I have highlighted and adapted for you the main theses. Russia is not the USSR, they cannot produce high-precision technological weapons in sufficient quantities. Sanctions play a role in this, but this is not the only or decisive factor. The only reason that drones are falling on the Kremlin is Russian aggression. Defense Minister Shoigu and his deputy Gerasimov were in favor of war against Ukraine, but they became victims of their own propaganda, which kept repeating the invincibility of the Russian army. The vast majority of Russia's elites are against this war. Another question is how to induce them to act. As soon as the situation in Russia falters, Kadyrov will be one of the first to get out of control, and it will be an internal war for survival. Putin is a legitimate target for Ukraine, but so far there has been no attempt to destroy him. Acknowledging Putin's death would change everything very quickly and dramatically. Whether we take advantage of this moment is the question. Blatant scum, rapists, war criminals will suffer the deserved punishment in any country in the world. The only deserved price for such deeds can be their liquidation. There are no other options. Ordinary Russians will have to pay for the war for a very long time, economically, reputationally, and politically. The establishment of a demilitarized 100-kilometer zone deep into Russia is Ukraine's goal. It is a security zone for Ukraine, a zone from which it is impossible to strike by conventional means in a short time. The fact that Ukraine has managed to confuse the enemy with an information agenda is, in his opinion, a fact. The fact that some Ukrainian citizens may also be confused by this information is less important than the task of deceiving the enemy. According to intelligence, the Russian armed forces have the potential to defend themselves, and have indeed built strong fortifications, but it is no longer the same army that it was before the full-scale invasion, and it can no longer conduct offensive operations. At the same time, the armed forces of Russia currently use against Ukraine about 370,000 people. Budanov believes that reconnaissance drones and kamikaze drones have shown tremendous effectiveness and indispensability on the modern battlefield. At the same time, striking reusable drones have shown less effectiveness, due to the enemy's extremely extensive use of air defenses. The most radically pro-Russian current residents of occupied Crimea will leave the peninsula on their own before the Ukrainian armed forces enter its territory. At the same time, they will have to use the ferry crossing, because Ukraine does not need the Crimean bridge. A very thick hint from Budanov: we wait. The threat of nuclear war is purely hypothetical. A bipolar world is possible, but certainly without Russia. They can no longer compete with the world's leading states in terms of economy, military or diplomacy. He also made it clear that Ukraine does not need Russian territories. Russia's internal affairs should be decided by Russian citizens. As for the Russian partisans, it is a decentralized network movement. Often groups are not united among themselves, but for the most part it is a controlled mechanism. There is no need to unite these groups with each other, because then they would be easier to track down and defeat.